If you can hear my voice, it means the lines under the Pacific are not completely dead yet. This is Tom Mercer. I am in a concrete room under what used to be Studio B of KJX Tokyo, a little English language station that used to play soft rock and read out baseball scores. The ceiling above me has a crack that runs from one corner to the other like a dark river, and every few minutes dust drifts down from it, slow as snow. The emergency lights are the only thing on in here. Everything else is off. The city above me is off. It is 15 minutes past 3 in the morning, local time in Tokyo. I don't know the exact second. The big studio clock stopped when the first shock hit. It froze with the second hand stuck between the 12 and the 1, like it was trying to climb out of the frame and run. Outside, the rain hasn't started yet. They say it will. The last real weather update I saw before the screens went dark said a winter front was rolling in from the Sea of Japan, dragging cold air and heavy clouds behind it. Right now, though, from the one slit of a window I can see if I stand on a chair and lean just right. The sky is clear. No moon. Just a jagged line of broken glass along the horizon where Shibuya's towers used to shine. If you're picking me up on shortwave, this is KJX Emergency, broadcasting on 14.31 megahertz. If you're somehow still catching FM, we're on whatever gap the transmitter can push through. I'm not even sure which antenna the engineer left me before he ran. All I know is the generator is still coughing in the basement, the battery bank hasn't died yet, and the little red light over my microphone is still on. So I'm going to keep talking. We are 3 hours into what the Japan Meteorological Agency is calling the largest earthquake ever recorded in this country. They are saying magnitude 9.6. They are saying it broke more than one fault. They are saying words like multi-segment rupture and full margin failure. But none of that matters as much as the simple thing. The ground moved in a way it was not supposed to move, and it kept moving long after it should have stopped. If you were asleep, you already know how it felt, because you're awake now. It started with that small, rolling feeling at about midnight, like a truck passing under the building. That's what everyone says after the small ones. You could hear furniture give tiny squeaks, walls sigh. Some of you probably sat up in bed, checked your phone, saw the usual yellow alert. Earthquake early warning. Strong shaking expected. Drop, cover, hold on. We all know that drill. Japan lives on drills. Children can do it before they can read. But the shaking didn't stop. First it rolled, then it jolted, then it punched. The floor came up and met the ceiling more than once. I was at this same desk, half distracted, scrolling through late-night listener emails. I had a mug of coffee near my right hand, and I remember seeing the surface of it start to ripple. At first, I thought of that scene from that old dinosaur movie. Then the lights flickered, the camera in the corner swung like it was on a ship, and the mug jumped sideways and smashed. The second shock hit harder. The emergency alarms on the walls screamed before the early warning app on my phone could even catch up. Somewhere in the building, something heavy fell. The sound came up through the floor like a crash of thunder. The studio door slammed itself shut. My chair rolled, and then the floor bent. It's hard to put into words. It didn't just shake. It lifted and twisted like the whole room was being wrung out. If you're listening from outside Japan, from somewhere safe where the lights are still on, grab a pen and write this down. The first strong shock lasted for 90 seconds. That's 1.5 minutes of everything around you trying to throw you off the planet. When it ended, everyone in this city had already started to think it was the worst they would ever feel. They were wrong. I'm going to walk this back a bit, because this didn't start tonight. Not really. We've had weeks of strange things, little warnings that didn't fit the usual pattern. You know how you learn to read the small messages in a place if you've lived there long enough? Here, that means you pay attention to the JMA app, the railway notices, the seabuoys, the talk and back channels where scientists and nerds argue late into the night. About 10 days ago, a listener sent me a link to a live stream from a seismology lab in Sendai. It was a guy called Dr. Kenji Matsuoka, a quiet middle-aged man with tired eyes, the kind of scientist who looks surprised when anyone points a camera at him. He and his team had been watching what they called tremor swarms off the Pacific coast, down near the Nankai Trough. Not the usual tiny quakes that Japan gets every day. These were deep, slow slips, quiet little shifts that didn't make people's cups move, but made their instruments hum. On the stream, he pointed to a graph full of dense lines. "These are like whispers," he said, in careful English for his foreign viewers. "The plate is whispering that it is getting ready to shout." He sent an email to the show afterward. My show. I read it off the screen one night, half as a curiosity piece. "There is a small chance," he wrote, "that separate locked sections of the plate could fail together. This is a low probability, high impact scenario. Most likely, nothing will happen. But if it did, it would be very bad. You should remind your listeners to refresh their emergency kits." I did a small segment about it, 3 minutes between songs, told people to check their flashlights and stock a little extra water. There were a few chuckles in the messages later. A few, "You're scaring us for clicks, Tom." I laughed them off. Japan gets scolded by the earth so often that you grow a thick skin about it. You learn to live over deep water and fast plates and move on. 2 days ago, the whispers turned into something else. The first hint wasn't from JMA, it was from the trains. The Shinkansen between Tokyo and Osaka started running with gaps. Not delays, exactly, but the sort of quiet thinning out that feels like someone backing away from a problem they don't want to name yet. There were rumors on Japanese Twitter that the underground stations were getting new evacuation posters overnight. Evacuation routes for tsunamis in places that haven't updated those maps in years. Last night, just before midnight, a friend of mine at Yokota Air Base, I won't say his full name on air, but he goes by Mick, sent me a short message. "Radar has been glitchy for hours. We have a weird pattern in the early warning feeds. They're pulling more people into the bunker than usual. Something feels off." I wrote back a joke about UFOs. He didn't reply. And then the big one hit. We don't have a clean picture yet. Most of the cameras on the coast went out, one by one, when the first wave came. But just before I lost the feed, I saw the live stream from a small town in Miyagi Prefecture. The camera was mounted on a pole near a fishing port. I've seen the same view 1,000 times. Calm water, a few lights from boats. Tonight, the water pulled back fast and quiet, like someone unclogging a giant drain. The boats sat crooked in the mud, ropes straining, the bottom of the harbor showing ribs it hadn't shown in decades. And then the horizon stood up. Waves don't look like waves when they are that big. They look like the ocean deciding it wants to be land for a while. A dark line rose in the distance and started to move forward, slow and steady. No breaking crest, just a wall. The camera shook so hard the image became a blur, and then there was nothing but static. That's when the first tsunami sirens started. Not the tests, not the polite recorded voices you hear at noon on the first day of the month. Real sirens, long and falling, shouted instructions in Japanese and English. Evacuate to higher ground. Do not go near the coast. Do not go to watch the waves. The screens in the studio lit up with red banners. Every channel, every feed, even the ones that usually only show late-night shopping channels, switched to the emergency graphic. A map of Japan with thick red blocks along the Pacific coast. Words in all caps, tsunamiwarning, majortsunamiexpected. We lost power 60 seconds later. Everything went dark. For a moment, the only light in here was the pale glow from my phone, now stuck at the last alert screen it had managed to download. Tsunami arrival time, 0036. Height, 30 meters or higher. 30 meters. You don't have to be good at numbers to know what that means. That is higher than most buildings in the smaller towns. That is higher than the flood walls built after 2011. That is enough to pick up houses like toys and drive them inland. I sat here in the dark for a few long heartbeats, hearing the building around me groan, listening to things fall somewhere out in the halls. Then the generator kicked in with a choke and a cough. The emergency lights flickered up, and the little rack of radio gear in the corner came back from the dead. I made a choice then. I didn't go home. I didn't try to run for higher ground. I don't know if that was brave, or stupid, or just the only thing I knew how to do. I hit the backup power for the transmitter, checked the antenna switch, and pushed this microphone closer. So, I said into the empty room, to nobody in particular, if anyone out there can hear me, you are not alone. That was about 2.5 hours ago. Since then, the city has been knocked around by aftershocks like a boxer who doesn't know how to stay down. The radio automation is dead, so there's no music, no jingles, just this voice and the occasional high-pitched beep from the emergency alert system when it manages to catch something from the few satellites still talking. I've been taking notes on a pad. Yeah, paper. Real paper. Remember that? Every time a new piece of information comes through on the old landline that's still tied into some ancient copper loop from the last century. Let me tell you what I know so far. Tokyo's eastern wards along the Sumida and Arakawa rivers are flooded, but not by a direct wave. The main tsunami hammered the coast further north, in Iwate and Miyagi and Fukushima. But the water that reached the rivers here rode in like a silent thief, filling them past their edges, pushing into streets, parking lots, subway entrances. If you live within walking distance of a river and you're on a low floor, get up. 2 floors higher, minimum. Roof, if you can. The Tohoku coast. The words are hard. A firefighter in Sendai, who called me on a break, said it like this. The sea has taken back its old land. That's all he had time to say before he had to go. The shouts out of Fukushima are worse. There are reports. I want to stress, these are early, not confirmed, but they keep coming in, that at least one nuclear plant along the coast has lost both grid power and backup diesel. If you remember 2011, you know what that means. When the pumps stop, the cores heat up. They have newer systems now, more layers, more backups. But redundancy doesn't mean much if all your backups are sitting in flooded basements. About 30 minutes ago, a soft-spoken man who said he worked as a technician at a plant, he wouldn't say which one, just down south, spoke to me on this line for maybe 60 seconds. His voice was tight, like he was holding his breath while talking so nobody would hear him. We lost the second generator, he said. We are running on battery, maybe 8 hours of cooling if we are lucky. The watermarks on the walls are higher than the design. We are trying to get manual systems to work. But the ground keeps shaking. We have cracks in concrete we did not have this morning. If they tell you everything is under control, They are buying time." Then he hung up. Silence from the government? That's the part that scares me more than the cracks, more than the waves. In the first hour, we got the usual stiff statements, calm faces reading from teleprompters, the Prime Minister asking everyone to stay calm and listen to officials. Since then, the main TV NHK feed froze on a half-spoken sentence about complex situations at multiple facilities. The Cabinet Office site won't load. The official Twitter accounts stopped posting updates about an hour ago and have said nothing since. You know who is still talking? The people who can't afford to be quiet. I'm going to open the lines again now. If you can get through, if the old phone exchanges are still routing, this number should work from inside Japan. 035XXXXXXX. If you're outside the country and somehow hearing this, if the waves haven't taken your cables yet, I'm sorry. This line is barely hanging on as it is. Let's see if we still have anyone on hold. Okay. There's a faint click in my earpiece that tells me at least one line is alive. I'm going to bring them on. You won't hear any fancy call screening. No delay. No censor. It's just you and me. Caller, can you hear me? You're on with Tom. Yes, I hear you. Is this live? Is this really live? It's live. What's your name, and where are you calling from? My name is Yuta. I'm in Sendai, or what's left of it. How are you holding up, Yuta? There's a breath on the line that sounds more like a sob he hasn't let out yet. I'm on the 3rd floor of an office building. We were on the street when the first shaking started. I was coming back from a late shift at the convenience store. The earth moved so hard I thought it would open. We ran. Everyone ran. There was no order, just people trying not to fall. We heard the sirens, the tsunami ones, you know. The old people. They started yelling, "Run uphill, run uphill." We got to this building on a slope and pushed in. The lights went out. The water came 5 minutes later. Can you see the street from where you are? I'm looking out right now. The road below is not a road. It's a river. There are cars in it, but they are upside down and on top of each other. I think it was a bus, but it's on its side, stuck in a row of trees. There are houses down there that I know used to be on the other side of town. They were carried here. I can see a vending machine floating past like a little boat. There are lights in some windows, but not many. The sky is dark, no stars. It smells like gasoline and mud. How many of you are in that building? Maybe 30, maybe more. People keep coming. A woman with a baby on her back. An old man who lost his cane. There is a boy who won't stop shaking. Not from the aftershocks. His hands just won't stop. We have no idea how high the water will go. I keep looking at the stairs, wondering how many more floors we have. Have you had any contact with emergency services? We tried calling. The line was busy, then dead. I got through once, and the person just said, "Move as high as you can. Do not go back down until we tell you." But it has been an hour, and nobody has come. We can see a fire in the distance. It's orange on the water. We don't know if it's a gas line, or a house, or a whole block. Yuta, listen to me. Stay where you are, but if you can move higher, do it. Even if the water looks like it stopped rising, these waves come in sets. The second can be worse than the first. If you can gather people on the highest floor, do that. Share whatever dry clothes you have. Keep everyone away from windows facing the water. Okay. Tom, are people outside Japan seeing this? Do they know? Some of them are listening. Some of them are watching where they can. The world is not blind. But right now, a lot of cables under the sea are broken, and a lot of satellites are busy. So speak as if you are sending a message in a bottle. There's a pause. When he speaks again, his voice has a strange steadiness to it. Then, if someone out there is listening, Sendai is not gone yet. We are here, on this hill, in this office building. We are cold and wet and scared, but we are here. Don't forget us when the cameras go somewhere else. We won't forget you, Yuta. The line clicks. Maybe he hung up to go help. Maybe the power in the building died and took the phone with it. I take a breath and look down at my notes. My handwriting is getting worse as the hours go by. The pen slips when the aftershocks roll through. The letters look like they're trying to run off the page. The science people, the ones who can still send messages, are starting to use a different tone. About an hour ago, between tremors, I got a short text from Dr. Matsuoka in Sendai. Yes, the same seismologist who warned about the whispers. I have no idea how his lab is still functioning, or if he's typing from a shelter with a portable router. But the message was clear. We are seeing rupture along at least 3 segments, north towards Hokkaido, south towards Shikoku. Total length may be 1,200 kilometers. This is beyond our models. Aftershocks will be intense and long-lasting. Some may look like separate quakes. Tell people, this is not over when the first big shaking stops. The crust is rebalancing. I wrote that down exactly as he sent it, then underlined "not over" 3 times. There's another theory going around, whispered in half-finished emails and late-night encrypted calls. I'm not going to dress it up. You deserve to hear it straight, and you can decide what to do with it. Some people in the US and Japanese defense circles have been worried for years that a quake this big, in this exact place, could be used by certain governments as cover. Cover for what? For moving ships, for testing weapons, for sending subs where they shouldn't go. The logic is simple and dark. When every sensor in the region is screaming about the Earth tearing itself apart, it's a good time to hide other noises. A retired Navy analyst I know in Yokosuka, call him Sam, managed to get a shortwave message through just before this broadcast. He said their sonar picked up a series of deep, sharp sounds in the trench just before the main quake. Not earthquakes, not aftershocks. It sounded like controlled charges, he said, like someone knocking loose a door that was stuck. Could that mean someone triggered this? Used explosives or some deep-sea tech to push a loaded fault over the edge? The majority of scientists I've seen talk about this say no. The energy in a quake this size is orders of magnitude larger than any nuke we've ever tested. You don't knock over a skyscraper by throwing a pebble at it. The plates were going to go someday. But here is the ugly thing. When you are sitting in the dark with a cracked ceiling above you and a shaking phone in your hand, it becomes very easy to believe that someone, somewhere, pushed this. Because the idea that it's just blind rock and slow geologic time is somehow harder to accept than the idea of a villain. Maybe we will find out, months from now, when the ocean floor has been mapped and the black boxes of certain ships have been dug up. Maybe we never will. For now, all I can do is tell you what people are saying and remind you that fear will twist every fact into a weapon if you let it. We're going to take another call. The board shows one blinking light. The others are dead. I press the key to connect. You're on with Tom. What's your name, and where are you calling from? Hey, my name's Alex. I'm in Seattle. Seattle. All right. You're across the ocean. How are things there? We still have power. For now. It's evening here. People are glued to their TVs and phones. The news broke in during some reality show. At first it was just big quake in Japan. Then they said something about a Pacific-wide tsunami warning. Now every channel has that red scroll across the bottom. My dad's watching the weather guys draw lines on maps, showing the wave reaching here in like 10 hours. 10 hours. That sounds about right for the far side of the Pacific. What are they telling you to do? They updated the tsunami zones all along the coast. Some of them changed since last year. They're telling people not to go anywhere near the beaches, not to drive down to see the waves like idiots. But you know people. Social media here is full of videos of guys with surfboards already talking about once-in-a-lifetime ride. My ex posted a selfie from Alki with the caption, "Tsunami Party." I don't think they get it. You've seen any images from here? Yeah, some, before feeds started dropping. There was a clip from Sendai that looked like a black river full of cars. Another from Chiba, where the highway just fell into itself. Twitter's glitchy because everyone is on it, but what's coming through looks bad. A lot of pray for Japan hashtags. A lot of brands using it to look caring. Sorry, that sounds cynical. It's okay. People fall back into their patterns, even when the ground doesn't. Tom, I called because my sister is in Tokyo. She's studying there. I tried calling her phone. It goes straight to voicemail. Her last text was, "Big quake LOL," like she thought it was another drill. That was 3 hours ago. I don't know what building she's in. I don't know if she got out. I don't know anything. And the news here, they just keep repeating the same sound bites. They bring on some expert in a suit. He says, "Our thoughts are with the people of Japan." And then they go to commercial. I was scrolling stations and somehow picked you up on a shortwave my dad keeps in the garage, and you sounded real. I don't know. I just needed to hear someone who's actually there. What's her name? Rachel. Rachel. Okay. Rachel in Tokyo. If by some miracle you are listening to a dusty old radio in a dorm room or a stairwell or a bathroom or wherever you are hiding, your brother Alex in Seattle is out there with a knot in his chest. He wants you to know he's thinking about you. And if anyone near Tokyo University or anywhere in Bunkyo Ward has power and net and knows a foreign student named Rachel with a messy bun and a loud laugh, I'm making that part up, but it feels right. Tell her to find a radio, any radio, and hang on to it. Thank you, Alex says, voice cracking. I know it doesn't actually get me information, but I feel less crazy talking to someone who can hear the same aftershocks I'm seeing on the news ticker. I hear one now, as if on cue. The mic picks up a faint rattling from somewhere in the studio as the building gives a long, slow groan. The little lamp on my desk trembles. You hear that, Alex? Yeah. The line kind of buzzed. That's the earth still rearranging itself under my chair. If you're on the West Coast, listen to your local alerts. If they say move inland, move inland. Don't argue with the ocean. I will. Stay safe, Tom. Please. You too. The line drops. I write, Alex, Seattle, Rachel in Tokyo, on the pad. Underline it once, as if that will somehow pin her to the living side of the ledger. There's a strange thing that happens in a disaster like this. Time stretches and collapses at the same time. Every minute feels like an hour, and yet you look up and realize whole chunks of the night are gone, swallowed by alarms and phone calls and scrambling for crumbs of news. My hands are shaking, not just from the aftershocks, but from the slow leak of adrenaline that started the first time the floor tried to throw me. I'm tired. I am so tired. My eyes burn from the dust and the strain. Every part of my body wants to lie down on the studio floor and just let the darkness have me for a while. But I keep thinking about something a caller said during a much smaller quake last year. She was an elderly woman from Kesanuma, one of the towns torn up in 2011, and she called in after a mild tremor. She said, "Back then, the worst part was not knowing if anyone else was still out there. The night felt like it was swallowing the whole world. The first voice I heard on the radio, that wasn't a siren, I clung to it like a rope. So I guess that's my job tonight. To be a rope, even if it's frayed. The infrastructure is cracking. The lights are off in most of Tokyo. The power companies are talking about rolling blackouts on the few lines that still work. But right now, it feels less rolled and more slammed. The mobile networks are a patchwork. Some areas have spotty service. Others are dead. Undersea cables between here and North America show massive signal impairment in the one status panel I can still reach. Those thick cords of fiber and glass that carry your Netflix and your banking and your video calls across the ocean. Some of them are now just noodles lying in mud and broken rock. I heard a rumor, again, unconfirmed, but this is the night of rumors turning into headlines, that some of the main undersea cable landing stations near Choshi and Shima took damage from the shaking and the waves. There were also whispers that a cable near Guam went dark right before the quake, as if something cut it. Some people say it's just the plates tugging. Others hint at darker hands. The truth is probably boring and mechanical. But when things break at this scale, every break feels personal. I'm going to talk about something practical now. Something you can do if you're in Japan, and you still have enough light to see your own hands. Check your gas. Not the gas in your car. That's important, sure. But the gas in your kitchen. If you have a gas stove, make sure the knobs are off. If you smell gas and you can reach the main valve, turn it off if you can do it without using any switches or lighters. Don't light candles if you smell anything weird. Use your phone screen as a flashlight if you have battery, or a simple battery-powered lantern if you've got one. If you are near the coast and somehow missed the first waves, don't go back. I know the urge to check your house, your shop, your boat. I know you want to save what you can, but that water is not done. There will be more sets. The last thing you want is to be caught on a road with no escape when a second or third tall wave rolls in under the cover of darkness. If you are inland, away from the sea, your main enemies right now are falling things, fire, and cold. Aftershocks will keep coming. Don't sleep right next to tall shelves. Don't block your exit with heavy furniture. If you make a little nest on the floor, keep a clear path to the door. If you have neighbors who are old or alone, check on them if it's safe to do so. A knock on a door in the night can be the difference between someone being trapped and someone crawling out. I say all this not as a hero, not as some disaster expert. I'm just a man in a cracked room with a microphone and a stubborn heart. But I have read a lot of reports, and I have spoken to a lot of people who lived through the last one, and a lot of the advice is the same. Stay higher than the water. Stay away from things that can fall on you. Share body heat. Don't let your phone die if you can help it. And don't trust every rumor you hear, especially the ones that tell you to panic. There are other things moving under the surface, I know. Economic chains snapping. Stock exchanges that will open tomorrow with blood-red numbers. Supply lines for car parts and chips and all the little bits of the modern world, all tied back to factories in places that might now be underwater or rubble. There are people in boardrooms already thinking about insurance and force majeure clauses, while others dig with their bare hands. We will talk about that later, if there is a later. Right now, the priority is simple. Who is alive? Who needs help? Where can they go? The emergency frequency on which police and fire and self-defense forces coordinate is a constant buzz of half-heard messages. Every now and then, a voice cuts through clear enough for me to catch a phrase. Collapsed bridge in Ibaraki. Multiple fires in Koto Ward. Evacuating coastal hospitals. Need more ambulances near Kamaishi. It's like listening to 100 tiny wars at once. Somewhere out there, helicopters are flying in the dark. Pilots trying to pick safe routes between chunks of airspace with no radar coverage. Ships are turning, either to ride out the waves in deeper water, or to come closer to pick up survivors. In some of the U.S. bases, I am told, there are tense conversations about whether to move assets, whether to send aid, whether this is purely a disaster or something that will turn into something else. We will feel the edges of those choices soon enough, here on the ground, in what gets sent where, in which areas get fuel and which get excuses. Another aftershock rolls through. This one is shorter, sharper, a faint rattle of something in the hallway. The mic shakes just enough that I hear the stand creak in my headphones. My heartbeat has started to treat these as normal. That scares me. I don't want this to become normal. If you're just tuning in, which seems like a strange phrase when half the receivers on this island are probably buried in rubble, this is Tom, still alive, still talking, from an emergency studio in Tokyo. The Japan Megaquake is not a breaking story anymore. It's a long, slow tear through everything we thought was solid. I'll keep going as long as this red light stays on. The red light above my mic is still on, though it flickers like it's losing the will to keep glowing. I keep one eye on it because part of me believes that when it finally dies, the room will collapse with it. Maybe that's nonsense. Maybe I'm just tired. The aftershocks feel closer together now, like the earth is shivering under us, trying to shake off whatever pain we caused it or whatever pain it swallowed tonight. Hard to tell which. I've been thinking back to something I heard a few hours ago, before the big rupture, before the ceiling cracked, and before Tokyo's skyline went dark, like someone smothered it with a heavy hand. A colleague from a sister station in Shizuoka sent me a voice clip around midnight. I didn't listen to it until maybe 10 minutes before the shaking hit. It was Haruki Sato, a calm overnight host with the kind of voice you trust even when he reads weather updates. He sounded rattled. I remember that clearly because Haruki never sounded rattled, not even during typhoons. In the clip, he said, "We're getting noise in the seismographs. Not noise, patterns. Long period tremors in the trough. Some of the sensors are failing, but the ones still working are saying the same thing. Something big is coming, bigger than 1946, bigger than 2011. He coughed, the kind of cough people do when they're buying time. Then he said, "If you have anyone on the coast, tell them to keep a bag ready. Tell them not to sleep too deeply." I messaged him back, asking if he was exaggerating. I never got a response. His station went off the map 2 hours later. And Shizuoka, if what I've heard tonight reflects even half of the truth, that part of Japan is gone in a way that's hard to grasp. Not just damaged, gone, like someone erased it with the side of a hand. I don't think most people understand what the Nankai Trough means. You hear the term in documentaries, in government pamphlets, in those city drills where volunteers hand out foil blankets and bottled water. But you don't really know it until it moves. And tonight, It moved in a way no model predicted. A rupture that tore open hundreds of kilometers of plate, snapping through segments that were supposed to be independent. When the notifications started pouring in, they didn't even list magnitudes at first. Just severe, major, catastrophic shaking expected. And then the numbers: 8.7, 8.9, 9.1. They kept revising it upward. That's how you know it's bad. When the scientists don't settle on a number because they're still in disbelief. There's a hum in the wall now. Low, uneven, like a machine with a failing heart. That's the generator downstairs. If it dies, I lose this broadcast, and with it, the only clear line I have left to anyone who might hear me. I told myself I wouldn't give this thing a personality, but I've started whispering to it between segments. Stay alive a little longer, I tell it. If I'm still here, you can be too. Maybe losing your sense of what's normal is part of being in a disaster like this. Maybe we're all allowed to talk to the furniture now. I'm going to read a message that came through on the old fax line, which somehow still limps along like a wounded soldier. The paper came out ripped on one edge and smeared at the bottom, but the main part is readable. It's from someone who signed their name as MT from a coastal town near Yaizu. It says, "We had 30 to 40 seconds of shaking before the real quake hit. The first waves came so fast that people didn't even reach the evacuation hill. The fishing port is gone. The breakwater collapsed like a tower of cards. We saw water rising behind us where the river overflowed at the same time the coast was hit. Houses floated past like rafts. We are on the 3rd floor of the community center, but the water keeps climbing. Some people are hurt. Some people are missing. Please tell anyone inland to open their doors to us when the waves stop. We have no place left to go." I keep holding that paper, reading it again, because part of me can't believe someone survived long enough to write it. If Yaizu is that bad, then Shizuoka City, Hamamatsu, Omaezaki. I don't want to say it out loud. My throat tightens when I try. There's another aftershock. The chair under me hops a little. Not enough to throw me, but enough that I have to grip the desk to steady myself. I can hear something fall in the hallway. Maybe a broom. Maybe a light fixture. The building feels like it's breathing. A slow inhale, a hold, then an exhale that rattles the windows. All right. I'm going to try the phones again. Most lines are dead, but one number on the board keeps blinking. It's weak, like the system can barely decide if it wants to acknowledge it. But it's there. I'm going to pick it up. You're on the air. This is Tom. Can you hear me? There's static at first. A long hiss, then a crackle, then a voice. Thin, shaky, like someone speaking from under a blanket. Tom, this is Reina. I don't know if this will hold. I think the cables are underwater. Where are you, Reina? In Makinohara, or what's left of it. My house. I don't know where my house is. Maybe the sea took it. Her breathing is uneven, not fast. Worse, slow and shallow. I ask her what she can see. I'm on the roof of a school. There are maybe 100 of us up here. The water is all around the building. It's black in the streetlights. No, there are no streetlights anymore. Sorry, someone has a car battery and a lamp hooked to it. That's the only light. We saw the first wave hit the factory district. It looked like a wall, a real wall. It didn't break until it hit the buildings. And when it broke, it made a sound like metal tearing. Is the water still rising? Yes, not as fast as before, but it It hasn't stopped. We can hear things under it. Cars, maybe. Or pieces of houses. There's a dog somewhere on a roof nearby. It keeps barking until the aftershocks shake it quiet. Do you have food? Water? She laughs, but not because anything is funny. The laugh is a reflex, like a cough. We have what people grabbed when they ran. A few bottles, some snacks. Nothing real. There's an old man in a wheelchair. We wrapped him in jackets. He keeps asking if the self-defense forces are coming. Nobody wants to tell him the roads are gone. Another long breath. I can hear the wind on her end. It whistles through something metal. There are children here too, she says. They're trying not to cry. One of the teachers keeps telling them this will be over soon. But we heard the plant alarms toward Omezaki. The loud ones. I think something there is wrong. Very wrong. The nuclear plant, Hamaoka. I swallow hard. She doesn't say it directly, but she doesn't have to. Everyone in this country knows those alarms by sound alone. Tom, she says suddenly, if the wind changes, will it reach us? I don't want to lie to her, but I also don't want to snap the last thread holding her together. I tell her the truth the only way I can. Reina, stay as far inland on the roof as possible. Keep the children close to the center. If the alarms were from Hamaoka, people inland will know. They will send word somehow. Right now, your job is to stay alive until that word comes. There's silence on the line. Not the disconnected kind. The thinking kind. Okay, she says quietly. Okay, please don't stop broadcasting. Even if we can hear only pieces, each piece feels like someone saying we're still part of the world. The line dies before I can answer. I stare at the blinking board, but the light is gone. Just dark. I rub my eyes with the back of my hand. My fingers are cold. Everything in here is cold, actually. The ventilation went off hours ago. The studio feels like a basement fridge. My breath doesn't fog, but the air bites the tips of my ears. There's a ticking sound coming from the old wall clock. It's not supposed to be ticking. It's battery-powered, but it stopped after the first quake. Now, every few minutes, it makes a single click, as if trying to restart itself. But the hands don't move. They stay frozen at 12:03. Something just flashed on the emergency monitor. A partial message. Looks like it came through one of the older satellite channels. It's only a fragment, but I'll read it. To all stations, damage reports confirm collapse of multiple bridges between Nagoya and Osaka. Landslides in the Key Peninsula continue. Transport corridors severed. Communications to Kansai intermittent. Casualty numbers unknown. Coastal districts unrecognizable. Do not wait for assistance. Continue broadcasting as long as possible. Then it cuts off. There's a pattern here, spreading from Shizuoka to Nagoya to the entire Tokai region. A long belt of destruction that looks, from the few maps still loading, like someone dragged a giant blade down the center of Japan. The roads are fractured. The Shinkansen rails are twisted in knots. The Tomei Expressway has entire sections missing, just voids where the asphalt used to be. Anyone trying to get from Kanto to Kansai, or the other way, will find nothing but broken tunnels and hanging bridges. I look at my notes again. The columns I drew earlier are starting to blur together. Communications down. Roads gone. Coast destroyed. Nuclear threat. Storm incoming. Isolation spreading. The big picture is becoming clear, even if the details are still smudged with panic and darkness. Japan is splitting apart. Not politically, not culturally, physically. The land itself is breaking into isolated pockets, each cut off from the next, forced to fend for itself. There's a faint buzz in my headphones. Not a call. A carrier wave. Someone is trying to break through on shortwave. I adjust the dial a little, and a voice drops in. A man, breathless, loud, shouting over wind. "This is Kobe. Kobe City. We're cut off. The bridges are down. Port is destroyed. Fires near Sanomiya. If anyone can hear, anyone, tell Tokyo we need..." Static swallows him whole. I try to lock onto the frequency again, but it's gone, torn away by atmospheric noise, or maybe by a dying transmitter. Another voice appears for a moment. Maybe Hiroshima. Hard to tell. Then more static. The airwaves tonight sound like ghosts screaming through broken wires. I lean back and stare at the ceiling. The crack up there has widened. I can see tiny flecks falling every few minutes. I keep listening for the sound of concrete failing. I keep telling myself I'll hear it before the whole thing comes down on me. That's probably a lie, but it's a lie I need. Another aftershock rolls in. This one is longer. The mic trembles. The chair shifts. Somewhere deep below, something metal bangs against something else. The whole building groans. I catch myself holding my breath until the shaking stops. There's the ticking from the dead clock again. One click. No movement. All right. I'm still here. You're still here. If you're hearing this. And as long as that stays true, I'm going to keep going. Because whether the Nankai Trough meant to or not, whether this was nature, negligence, or something darker hidden under the waves, tonight it tore open the spine of this country. And the days ahead, they will not get easier. The generator downstairs coughs again, this deep metallic shudder that echoes up the ventilation shaft like the building is clearing its throat. I keep glancing at the power meter on the wall. It's an old analog thing with a needle that swings between steady and danger. And right now, it's sitting closer to danger than I'd like. If that needle drops any lower, the lights will fade and this mic will fall silent. And silence feels like the one thing we can't afford right now. The quake didn't just crack buildings, it cracked time. The hours don't move the way they used to. I look at the clock and swear it was 3:20 a moment ago, and now somehow it's crawling toward 4. But outside, the city is still pitch black. No headlights, no neon, no window glow from apartments. Tokyo without power looks like someone erased it with a rag soaked in ink. I keep thinking about the people who would normally be awake at this hour. The taxi drivers slipping through Shinjuku streets, the overnight workers stocking shelves in tiny stores, the fishermen preparing nets along the eastern shore, the students cramming for exams under blue LED lamps, the small restaurant still open because the owner couldn't sleep. All those pockets of light scattered across the city like droplets of gold. Gone. Replaced by this endless dark. There's movement outside the studio. Not human footsteps. Too heavy, too slow. It's the building again, settling, shifting under its own weight. The structure wasn't meant to be tossed around like this, jolted every 15 minutes. Each aftershock is a hammer tapping at the nails that hold this place together. I imagine the building as a tired old man trying to keep standing even though his legs shake. I look down at the stack of papers in front of me. Some are scribbled notes. Some are half-printed faxes. Some are torn from callers who were cut off mid-sentence. Each one is a little shard of this night. A piece of the disaster trying to put itself into words. One of them catches my eye. The ink is smeared, but I can read most of it. It's from a man named Shuhei in Karia near Nagoya. He wrote, "The first wave hit our factory district like a blade. We lost the whole east line. The machines are underwater. Gas tanks ruptured. The fire started fast. The sea water boiled around it. We could hear metal screaming as it bent. We are evacuating to the roof. There are explosions from the port. It looks like the whole skyline is burning. Please, tell people not to come this way. There is nothing left for them here." I fold the paper slowly, because my hands shake when I read it. Nagoya is a major industrial hub. If what he describes is happening across the whole coastal belt, then Japan's manufacturing backbone is drowning or on fire. The scale of that loss, it's too big to process right now. It's like trying to understand the size of the ocean while standing ankle deep in a puddle. There's something else I haven't told you yet. Something I noticed about half an hour ago, during that pause between calls, where the silence felt like it was pressing against my ears. It's the air, not the temperature, though it's cold enough in here that my breath feels thin, but the quality. The ventilation system is dead, and usually that makes a room feel stuffy. But right now the air feels unsettled, like there's pressure building somewhere inside the walls. Or maybe that's just the room warping from stress. Hard to say. But every few minutes my ears pop slightly, like I'm changing altitude even though I'm sitting in the same chair. I'm going to try the shortwave band again. The signals have been weak, but sometimes, if the atmospheric noise dips for a second, a voice slips through. I turn the dial slowly, listening to the hiss shift from low to high, like wind brushing a microphone. Static. More static. A faint tone. Then, West Region broadcasting from temporary shelter. Mass evacuations underway. Repeat. All bridges from Wakayama to Osaka compromised. The voice is thin, fading in and out, as if someone is talking from inside a moving tunnel. But it's enough to confirm what the earlier messages hinted at. Osaka isn't just damaged, it's isolated. The bridges across the giant rivers, the Yodo, the Yamato, they're crucial arteries. If they're down, Kansai is trapped. Supplies can't get in, people can't get out. The signal strengthens for half a second. Fires near Sumino. Airport runways flooded. Water not receding. Then gone. The moment it cuts, I hear another noise, this time from the landline phone behind me. A single ring. Sharp. Sudden. Like something waking up. Most of the time the phone doesn't ring at all. The circuits flicker, the lights blink, and then everything falls silent again. So when it does ring, even once, it feels like a lifeline being thrown into the void. I pick it up before it can die. This is Tom. Who's calling? The voice that answers is breathless, rushed, like the caller sprinted to reach the phone. Tom, this is Dr. Kenji Tanaka. I don't know if you remember me. I straighten up. That name isn't unfamiliar. The engineer, the one who spoke earlier tonight about infrastructure failures in the Tokai region. A calm man. Measured, rational. But the voice I'm hearing now is not the voice of someone in control. Yes, I remember, I tell him. Where are you calling from? I'm in Shimizu. What's left of it? I don't have long. The building we're in is damaged. The stairs are gone. We're using a ladder to get between floors. Listen. Listen carefully. What I told you earlier needs updating. He pauses to cough. It sounds deep, like dust in the lungs. Japan is cut into pieces, he says. Not metaphorically, structurally. The quake ruptured so many segments that the transport network isn't just damaged, it's severed. The Tokaido corridor is broken in multiple places. Rails twisted, tunnels collapsed, highways split in half. Emergency teams can't move east to west. They can't coordinate. They can't reach each other. I ask him if that means the country is functionally isolated. No, he says. It means the country is multiple islands now, not the 4 painted on school maps. Hundreds, thousands of isolated pockets, each surrounded by rubble or water or both. This isn't just a disaster. This is a division of the entire Pacific coast. Another aftershock hits, and his voice shakes with it. Tom, he says after the rumble quiets, Hamaoka is failing. The words hit me like a physical blow. How bad? I ask. There's a long silence on his end. Then, bad enough that if the wind shifts tonight, people inland will need to move. Fast. The tsunami took out the backup generators. The quake cracked the intake systems. There is no stable cooling. The emergency workers are doing everything they can with manual controls, but the ground won't stop shaking. Even if they stabilize it right now, we still have aftershocks coming that could undo everything. He takes a breath that sounds shaky. Tell people to go north or west if they can. Not south. Not along the coast. Inland mountains are unstable, but they're safer than staying downwind. The line hisses. I think we're losing him. Before I go, he says, tell anyone listening that this isn't just one event. The atmospheric river coming in 3 days. It will hit slopes that are already loosened. Towns in the mountains will be buried. Rivers will overflow with rubble. If they don't get out before the storm, they won't get out at all. Kenji, I say, is anyone coming to help you? He lets out a weak laugh. No one can reach us unless they have a helicopter or a boat, and the water is full of debris. Even military ships will struggle. We are on our own. The line crackles. Tom, he adds, softer now. Keep broadcasting, even if the power fails, even if nobody answers. People need a voice to tie themselves to. Then the call dies, just like that. I sit there, holding the receiver, listening to the empty buzz. My hand feels numb, like the phone drained the warmth from my skin. I put it down slowly. The building gives another groan, long and low, like a warning sigh. There's something heavy settling into my chest now. Not panic, not shock. Something colder. Realization, maybe. The understanding that we're stepping into the part of the disaster where fewer people can help and more people can only endure. A soft thump sounds against the window behind me. My body tenses before I turn. It's nothing, just dust or debris falling from higher floors. But the instinct to brace has become automatic now. Every sound feels like a threat. I close my eyes for a moment, just long enough to breathe in and out. Then I lean toward the mic again. If you can hear me, you are part of a thread we're all holding on to. Even if it's frayed, even if it's thin, even if the world outside is tearing itself apart piece by piece. I'm here, I'm still here. The next thing I hear isn't an aftershock. It's the wind. Somehow, even inside this thick-walled studio, it finds its way in, through the cracked window frame, the warped door, the vents that no longer blow anything but cold air. It whistles like a thin breath being pulled through teeth. It reminds me of the sound a kettle makes right before it boils, except there's nothing warm in it. Just a warning carried on the air. Tokyo doesn't usually have wind this strong at night in winter. Not unless a system is moving in. And if that's the leading edge of the atmospheric river they've been forecasting, then this broken city, with its shattered windows and leaning buildings, is about to get hit all over again. Rain on unstable hillsides, rain on cracked roads, rain on the mountains where aftershocks are still shaking loose rocks the size of cars. If that storm arrives full force, everything buried in mud tonight will stay buried for days, maybe weeks. The emergency monitor flickers again. 2 flashes, then black. It's like it's trying to show me something and giving up halfway through. A faint clicking sound comes from inside the casing. Each click feels like another tiny death in the system. I flip through more of the papers stacked beside me. Some pages are wrinkled from damp air. Others are torn on the edges. One sheet has a footprint on it. My footprint, I think, from when I stumbled during a strong aftershock earlier. There's a handwritten note near the top. It must have come in while I was talking to Dr. Tanaka. It reads, "Station Aichi off air. Fires spreading. Evac centers full. People on roads with bags, blankets, pushing children on carts. No transport. No officials seen for hours." No officials seen for hours. That's the part that stands out. Not because officials are the backbone of disaster relief. They're not at the start. Ordinary people do the real work while the government tries to figure out which parts of the country still function. But the total silence from every major office tonight is unlike anything I've seen in this country. Japan is good at order, good at structure, good at keeping calm even when the world shakes under their feet. But when the people in suits disappear from the airwaves completely, that means the situation isn't just out of control. It means the system itself is broken. I'm about to read another message when I hear footsteps, real ones this time, somewhere beyond the studio door. Slow, dragging steps. Not the building shifting, not debris falling. Actual footsteps. My throat tightens. I haven't seen another living person since the building evacuated after the first quake. Everyone left. Engineers, hosts, janitorial staff, the poor intern who had just made himself instant noodles. They all ran for the stairwell the moment the building's support beams screamed. I told myself I'd follow once I finished sending out a warning, but then another aftershock hit, and part of the stairwell collapsed. The engineer shouted to me from the landing above, telling me to get out through the south exit. But I couldn't leave the equipment yet. The studio was the only space still intact. I waited too long, and by the time I made it to the hallway, the exit door was jammed from the distortion in the frame. So I came back, told myself I'd stay here until help arrived. Help hasn't arrived, but someone might have. The footsteps stop outside the door. A soft knock follows. Not loud, not urgent. Just there. I freeze, my hand hovering over the mic. Whoever is out there must be very desperate or very lost. Then a faint voice seeps through the gap. "Hello? Is anyone in there? The lights are on." It's a young voice, male, maybe mid-20s. I stand up, pull the door open an inch. It sticks at first, then cracks free with a groan. A man stands outside the studio. His hair is damp, his jacket torn at the sleeve. One side of his face is streaked with dust, as if he'd been crawling at some point. He holds a portable radio in one hand, a small red emergency model with a crank on the back. He looks at me like he's not sure I'm real. "You're broadcasting," he says, staring past me at the blinking panel. I nod. Trying to. He steps inside like he's entering a church, slow and quiet. "I heard you," he says. "On this thing. Thought it was just leftover signal from before the quake." but you kept talking, so I followed the sound. I ask him his name. Yoshio, he says. I was staying in a hostel nearby. When the quake hit, I ran outside with everyone else. We scattered when the building started shedding glass. I've been moving from block to block trying to find somewhere safe. But every time I find a spot, an aftershock hits and something collapses. I thought the whole city was empty until I heard your voice. He sits down slowly in the chair across from me, as if afraid the floor might give out. Behind him, the hallway lights flicker again. The building feels like it's breathing harder now. Do you need water? I ask him. He shakes his head. I have some. But do you mind if I stay here for a while? Just until the shaking slows down? The streets feel like they're folding in on themselves. Before I can answer, another tremor hits. A long one. The table creaks. The light over the door sways. Yoshio grips the arm of the chair, knuckles going white. When it stops, I nod toward the corner where a blanket is folded on top of a supply crate. Stay as long as you need, I say. The building is still holding for now. He exhales, the kind of exhale that carries a whole hour's worth of fear. Then he looks at the mic. You're really talking to the whole country, he asks. I'm talking to whoever still has a working radio. He nods slowly. Can I say something for anyone who might be listening? I motion toward the mic. Go ahead. He leans forward. His voice is soft at first, unsure if he has the right to speak into this battered machine. This is Yoshio. I'm in Tokyo. If you're out there and you're scared, I'm scared too. Everyone is. But I'm alive. And if I'm alive, you can be too. Find somewhere safe. Don't try to make it home if home is far. Don't walk under tall buildings. Don't go near the river. Just keep moving until you're away from things that can fall on you. And if you hear this station, follow the sound. Someone is here. He sits back, breathing hard, like those few sentences took everything he had left. I give him a quiet nod. Sometimes the simplest words are the ones people most need to hear. The phone rings again. Weak. One beep. I grab it before it dies. This is Tom. A voice answers. Female. Shaky, but determined. Tom, this is Aya from Numazu. We need help. Please. Numazu. A coastal city in Shizuoka Prefecture, right near the part of Japan that took the brunt of the first rupture and the first wave. What's happening there? I ask. She takes a breath that trembles. The port is gone. The sea walls failed. The water hit the lower parts of the city, and then fire started at the tank farms. We evacuated to a hill, but there are hundreds of us. Some wounded. No power. No phone signal except this one brief patch where I climbed high enough for the battery in my phone to catch something. Her voice breaks for the first time. There are children here, she says. Babies. Elderly. Some people haven't stopped crying since the shaking started. We saw the glow from Shizuoka City in the distance. It looked like the whole coastline was burning. We heard alarms from the direction of Hamaoka. And now the wind is changing. People are panicking. The nuclear alarms again. Aya, I say gently. How high is the hill you're on? I don't know. Maybe 30, 40 meters. We followed the signs from the evacuation map, but the signs are underwater now. Stay put, I tell her. Do not go down. Do not move toward the coast for any reason. Help will come, but it won't come fast. Do you have shelter? Only trees, and a few tarps. Then stay close together. Share warmth. If the wind brings anything dangerous inland, you'll need to move further inland, not downhill. She sniffles. I hear her cover the phone briefly as someone asks her a question. Then she comes back. Tom, is the rest of Japan okay? Is Tokyo okay? I look around at the broken studio, the cracked ceiling, the flickering lights, the faint shaking that hasn't stopped for hours. Aya, I say softly, Tokyo is not okay, but there are survivors here, and you're not alone. There are people listening across the country. As long as this station is alive, you won't be forgotten. She lets out a shaky breath. Thank you, she whispers. The line cuts. When I hang up, Yoshio is staring at me with wide eyes. He looks like he's trying to understand something too big for his mind to shape. That was Shizuoka, he says quietly. That means the whole belt is gone. Not gone, I tell him, but broken. He puts his face in his hands. Another aftershock, sharper. Enough to make the pens roll across the table. I grip the edge of the desk so tightly my fingers ache. When it stops, I speak again. Not just to the mic, but to the room, to the dark city, to anyone holding on to this fragile thread. To anyone listening, you're still here, and so am I.